just how you live. Oh, take it all, but you never did. Should've known you were chosen from the first kiss. Had your eyes wide open. Why were they open? Gave you all I had and you tossed it in the trash. I'd catch a grenade for ya. Throw my hand on a blade for ya. I'd jump in front of a train for ya. You know I'd do anything for ya. Oh, I would go through all this pain. Take a bullet straight through my brain. Yes, I would die for you, baby, but you won't do the same. No, 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 no. Black and blue. Beat me till I'm numb. Tell the devil I said, hey, when you get back to where you're from. Bad woman, that's just what you are. Yeah, you'll smile in my face, then rip the brakes out my car. Gave you all I had and you tossed it in the trash. You tossed it in the trash, yes you did. To give me all your love is all I ever ask. 'Cause what you don't understand is I'd catch a grenade for ya. Throw my hand on a blade for ya. I'd jump in front of a train for ya. You know I'd do anything for ya. Oh, I would go through all this pain. Take a bullet straight through my brain. Yes, I would die for you, baby, but you won't do the same. If my body was on fire, ooh, you'd watch me burn down in flames. You said you loved me, you're a liar, 'cause you never, ever, ever did, baby. But darling, I'd still catch a grenade for ya. Throw my hand on a blade for ya. I'd jump in front of a train for ya. You know I'd do anything for ya. Oh, I would go through all this pain. Take a bullet straight through my brain. Yes, I would die for you, baby, but you won't do the same. No, you won't do the same. You wouldn't do the same. Ooh, you never do the same. No, 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 no.
I had a dream, we were sipping whiskey neat, highest floor of the Bowery, and I was high enough. Somewhere along the lines, we stopped seeing eye to eye. You were staying out all night, and I had enough. No, I don't wanna know where you've been or where you're going, but I know I won't be home, and you'll be on your own. Who's gonna walk you through the dark side of the morning? Who's gonna rock you when the sun won't let you
All right, well, good morning, everyone. We got 3 people live and looks like 5 people on Zoom, which is kind of cool. So the idea of today's class is we're going to be just going through and talking about kind of the basics of Dotloop and helping you to understand how to use it and those type of things. And then I'll answer any questions that anybody has. So just want to make sure you guys on Zoom, can you hear me? Either unmute or throw something in the chat box so that I know you're hearing me at least.
We can hear you.
Awesome, thank you. All right, well, good. So I'm gonna get my screen shared here so you guys on Zoom can see what we're doing. Minimize that. All right, so for you guys in here, probably be a little easier to see if we do that. Does that work? Yeah. Let me sign this. All right, so here's what we're gonna do is just gonna walk you through just getting signed in, and then we'll talk about all the things you need to know basically to get going with using Dotloop. So so the first thing is you're just gonna go to dotloop.com, and then you'll log in with your email address, and then you should have a password that has been set up for you. If not, you can hit the forgot password and get set up on that. But when you first log in, this is where it's going to land you, is into this screen right here, which is the dashboard. And so you're landing first on just the loops. And so really what we're going to do is just go through and talk about each of these things along the top. So you'll notice here at the top, the first thing is this reporting section, which honestly I've never used. So in fact, I can click on it here, I guess, so we can see. But it's showing year-to-date sales and things like that, which I guess is fine. Really, probably not a whole lot you're going to do there. Instead, when you log in, it's typically going to land you on this loops section. So this is all of your loops. Now, here's how I always say to think about Dotloop is that ultimately, if I'm going to liken it to a filing system, essentially, and if you'll just think of it that way, I think will kind of help you with understanding the system. So think of it as when we land here, essentially it's like if we were walking into an office that just had a filing cabinet up against the wall, essentially that's where we're at right here. This is basically a huge filing cabinet, okay? And then contained inside of that filing cabinet is going to be files. And inside of the file folder, then you're going to have all the documents and things inside that file folder. So if you'll just kind of think of Dotloop as being that same type of a thing, is it's a file drawer that has files in it that has the documents then within each of those files. That's kind of the best way of thinking about it. And I'll refer back to that later on as we go through it. But so keep in mind that like landing here, ultimately, even though this is like a huge filing cabinet, like you'll see here, this 511 East, 7th in Ogden, and the 69 East, 200 North in Provo, those ones are going to be files that are contained within that file system, okay? But I'm going to just start with first, just on this loops section. So this loops area is where you're going to be able to see all of your loops that you have put into the system. So if you just kind of scroll through there, you'll just see it keeps adding more loops. So those are all your loops. So typically what you're going to do, most of the time that you spend, you're going to essentially just start right here, which is why the system has you, when you log in, lands you right on this page here, is because generally this is where you're going to start. And the idea of that being, you're either going to start by going into working one of the files like this 511 East, or you're saying I need to create a new file. And so if that's the case, you would just do a loop up here. So think of a loop as just being a file system. Does that make sense? All right, so I'm going to just click on add loop here. So that's going to now bring me to this section. So again, just making sure you're following where I'm at is essentially I've got this filing cabinet, and now I'm going to create a new file that I'm going to house within this filing cabinet. So when I clicked on loop, think of that as being synonymous with a file. So I've clicked on it. Well, the first thing now, and if you were to go back in time to thinking about creating that file, and I probably should actually bring some into here, the class, to show it. But you're going to have kind of either those green hanging things that are in the filing cabinet, or you've got the manila folders, and you've got a tab that you're going to create for it. That's what this is. This loop name, think of that as just going to be that you're naming that file folder. And typically what you're going to name it is either the property address or the MLS. Now, the reason why you want to do that, now, not every time are you going to be able to do that, but when you can, you want to use that, because if the property is on the MLS already and you throw in the property address, it will allow you to then pull some of the information in to this file as a result of that. But let me give you an example that you're not going to. So let's say that I've just met Jake over here, that I was prospecting this morning, and I met him and we set an appointment, and I've either going out to meet with him, or maybe I have met with him, and he has said, yeah, I want to buy a house and I want you to be my agent. Well, at this point, do I know what property he's buying? Obviously, I don't. So as a result, I'm not going to type in a property address here for Jake, because I don't know what property he's going to buy yet. But I still want to create the file for him, or the loop for him, because I want to have a place to house it, and I'm going to ask him to sign the buyer broker agreement. And so I need somewhere to put all of that. So what you can do is you can just name it whatever you want. So I'll show you what I mean. So because we're using this as just a class, I'm just going to name it as test, and then I'll put Union Park, August, today's the 6th, I think, 2020. So you can see I can name it whatever I want to. But typically what you're going to want to do, though, is let's say that I had named it Jake. All of a sudden, what I'm going to do, though, once we find a property, I'll probably want to go rename it and put in the property address, which you can do. So that's typically how you're going to do it. And the reason being for that is you're typically going to then want to search for things that way, and or have it show up on that home page having the name of the address. So, but however you want to do it, it's fine. So I'm just going to put it in here as test this, but actually, let me even back up real quick before we do that. If I did have an address, though, I could start to type in, you know, and it's going to be trying to figure out, and it's using Google, as you can see. So I just started putting in my home address here, and you'll notice it's pulling it up to where I could just select it that way using Google off the address. So, okay, so that's how that's going to work. But let me just go back here. So test Union Park, August. All right, so that's what I'm going to name the loop. So now I just hit continue. The next thing that it's going to ask for is what's the template you want to use. Now, in terms of the template, the choices we have, in fact, let me click on that so you can see what they are. The choices that you've got is new listing blank loop, buyer under contract blank loop, relocation listing, relocation buyer, or REO listing. So let me explain what these are. And I'm not going to go through every one of them, but the new listing, go all the way up. This new listing one, if I were to just select that one, it is going to have, and I will do this here in just a second, but it's going to have placeholders. And the idea of these placeholders would be letting you know at a minimum you're 90% of the time, maybe 95 or 98% of the time, going to need every one of the documents that there's a placeholder for. Versus this new listing blank loop is not going to have those placeholders. So let me show you what I mean. So, and then same thing with buyer under contract. The buyer under contract will have those placeholders so that, especially if you're a newer agent, it's going to give you a little bit of an indication of, hey, here's some of the forms you're going to need to use throughout this transaction. Versus the blank loop doesn't have any of those placeholders, okay? So I'm going to just click on this new listing here. We'll select that as the loop we want to do, the template. So you're always going to start first with the template. And again, you're just going to look at it from the standpoint, if I had met Jake and it was going to be a buyer, I would select the buyer. Yeah, buyer under contract, is that what it was? Yeah, buyer under contract, but we'll just say he's got a property to sell too. So I'm going to click new listing here. So now as I hit continue, the next thing that it's going to ask me for is, do I want to upload a photo? I don't know very many people that actually do this and upload a photo. You're welcome to, but it's not a thing that typically happens. Let's see, I think somebody might have thrown the chat. So yeah, good question. Where you'll be able to find all of these classes, the recordings, is I always throw them onto on YouTube. There is a channel that is called Peak Agent Training. So if you go to if you go to YouTube and search Peak Agent Training, you'll find my channel, and then all of these videos are always housed there. And I will have it. You can then search by. The other thing with that, if you didn't want to go to the channel, you can actually just go to YouTube and you can type in Dotloop August 6, 2020, and it'll bring it up. So, but if you just typed in Dotloop, it'll bring it up as well. But you're going to do it a little easier if you go to Peak Agent Training first. So that's where you're going to be able to find these after. Which, by the way, thanks to you guys that are online, if you will all throw in a first name and last name in the chat box just so that I can keep track of who is here, I'd appreciate it. I've had everyone that's in person here sign in, but that's perfect. So let's see what else. Oh, perfect. Yeah, everybody's throwing in their name. All right. So you can upload a photo of the property if you want to here. It's not going to be seen by anybody except for the office, and you really is the only people that is going to see that. I might be wrong. Maybe the client will if you share something with them in Dotloop, but I don't know if it does or doesn't. But not just kind of. I've never uploaded one. I guess is what I'm kind of telling you. If you want to, you're welcome to, but you don't need to upload it either. All right. So now I'm going to say done, which is now going to create the loop here. So you'll see it's showing that it's created the loop. I could create another loop, or I can view that loop. You can see I can enter closing. The type here, I can, it's a listing for sale, listing for lease, it's a purchase, lease, real estate, other, whatever. Typically, you're just, because you've selected new listing, it's going to default to what you need it to be. The status on here, though, is you're typically probably going to start it as a pre-listing, or the scenario I was saying earlier where if I had met a buyer and I was going to creating the loop for them and I didn't have a property yet, it's going to be a pre-offer kind of a thing. So then you've got private listing, active listing, under contract, withdrawn, sold. These are all the different types. Typically, like I said, you're going to start it as probably a pre-listing is what you're probably going to do. And then if you know a price, you can enter it in there. If you don't need to. And if you do a closing, which again, you're not at this point. So I'm just going to do view loop. All right. Let me clear out the chat box here. Make sure that I'm not missing questions. All right. So now I'm within that loop, you can see here. And contained in this loop, you can see it's got the name of the loop. It's got this listing for sale. This is where I could change that status again. So as you go through the process, you can change it. And I can view the details right here. Now, so down here is the document. So again, thinking of this as like a file folder, these would be all of the documents within that file folder. So we've opened up the folder. So inside of here, you'll notice that it has the listing documents here and under contract. So these are both folders. So there's two different folders contained within this. One is the listing documents, the other is the under contract documents. Again, the assumption being that you'll eventually need those under contract documents in there. Oops. Sorry, just trying to keep an eye on the chat here. All right, so you can see that these are grayed out. So every one of these being grayed out, and the fact that off to the side here it's showing optional, optional, optional. Those may or may not really be optional forms, meaning the company may say, yes, you've got to have it. But at that point, all it is a placeholder. So meaning that the actual document is not there. It's just saying this is where you should put the exclusive right to sell listing agreement. This is where you should put the MLS input form. This is where you should put the seller property condition disclosures. So let's say, though, that I'm ready to do that for this. I need to add the listing agreement, the exclusive right to sell. So I just come and hover over here, and you'll see it's got add file. So anytime I hover over these, it's going to give me that option to add the file. So I click on add file, and then from there, it says, do you want to add it from the computer or the templates? So if I had, which you could, if I had just printed out the documents, went and sat down and had the client sign them all, and then brought it back to the office, I could then scan those to my computer and from my computer upload them. So that's what this is saying. Do you want to upload the files or this listing agreement from your computer or from the templates? Well, because I don't have one scanned to my computer because I haven't gone out and had it signed yet, I'm going to use it through Dotloop. I'm going to go to templates instead. So as soon as I click on templates, it's bringing up now to load all the available templates. And I'll show you, there's another way you can get to the templates, and I'll show you that later. But contained in this, it's got your personal things. So you can see, you could throw personal documents in here if you wanted to. I had to have a Camaro towed from a car, so I had to throw one in there for that. So that's your personal documents that you can put in there. There's an inbox in here, which I've never once used, but you could get stuff into your inbox by sending it through email, which we'll talk more about later. But typically where you're going to go to is this all C21 and MLS forms. So if I click on that, that now has loaded every one of our forms, the Century 21 forms and any MLS forms. So from here, I'm just going to now do a search for the documents that I want. So up here in this search box, I'm just going to type in exclusive. And you'll notice as I type it in, it starts to filter it right here. Right to sell. And for me, once you've typed in exclusive right to sell, you can see here's this, it's first bringing up addendums because it's got the A in there. So I can just scroll down, and then if you hover over it, you can see this one would be the exclusive right to sell listing agreement with 6% as the commission and a $3.95 administration fee. If I come down to this one, it's a 6% with a $4.95 fee. This one up here is the 6% with a $2.95. And if I just keep scrolling down, you'll see a $6.95. There's a 7% listing agreement with $2.95, 7% with $4.95, 7% with an $8.95. So you can see we've just got multiples of different, and you just whichever fee you're wanting to charge is the one you're going to select here. So we've got one agent who will occasionally use one that's a $9.95. I thought I saw $9.95 on there. Yeah, there's a $9.95 fee. So the $2.95 is the minimum one that you need to do, but you can see, like I said, we got tons of different options. So I'll just select whatever this next one is. This $7.95 with the 7% with the $7.95. So I find the document I want, and then I'm just going to select that over here. Off to the side, you can see the little radio button. So I click copy, and it shows that it's now imported. And now, so you can see that it's black now versus this grayed out, and it shows not submitted. So now I know I've got the actual form there. When it's saying optional, there's not a form there. That's just the placeholder. So I've thrown in that exclusive right to sell. Let's also go get the seller property disclosures. So I would, again, just so you guys can see how to do it, I'm going to go to add file, templates, select all C21 and MLS forms, and then I'm going to start to type in seller property. Oops. Did I do something wrong? Oh, because it's sellers. So here it is. Here's the seller property condition disclosure. So I'm going to select that. Copy it, it's importing, I hit OK. So now I've got that form in there as well. So I could go through and do the same thing with this wire alert disclosure. So templates, I'll C21 and MLS. I'm just going to type in wire fraud for the seller, copy, and it's in. All right, so I've got those forms in there now. So I would just do that same thing, adding any of the forms. Now, in the event that I wanted to add a form that is not in this list of templates, I can still do that as well. And that is just up here, clicking Add Document. Now, if I click Add Document here, it's going to add it to this folder. If I click Add Document here, it'll add it to the Under Contracts. If for whatever reason I wanted to add another folder, I can just click Add Folder, and then I would name it test, new folder, and boom, there's another folder in there. So you can add as many folders inside of this as you loop as you want to. Now we're not going to use this one, so I'm going to get rid of it. The way you get rid of them, so same with documents or folders, if you wanted to get rid of them, you got the 3 dots here, you're going to click on it, and you'll notice there's nowhere to delete. You cannot delete anything out of this system, and which is a good thing. So the idea of not being able to delete it out of here is nobody can ever come back and say, oh, I accidentally deleted it or whatever. Like you cannot delete. So instead you archive. So I'm going to go down here and do archive for this folder. And now you'll see that folder's gone away. When I scroll through here, you don't see it. But if I ever wanted to get it back, there's a show archived right here that I just hit, and it would bring it right back. So just keep in mind, you can't ever delete a document. You can archive the documents, and if you ever want to see them again, you just hit show archived and it'll bring them back for you to view. Okay, so we've got these documents in here. We're ready to fill them out. So I can do it one at a time if I want, which I would just click on each individual one of these. Or if I come up here and click this box, it'll select all of those documents. And it's not letting me. Why? It should bring up something right here that said open. I don't know why it's not doing it. All right, well, we'll do one at a time. Either way. So typically though, you can select on this, it has open, and you can click on open and it'll open all of the files, but I'm not sure why it's not working. So anyway, we'll click on this, the exclusive right to sell. So as soon as I click on that, it's opened up that document, but the first thing it's asking me is, do you want to autofill? This is one of the best things about this system is that I can go put in who the seller is, both a husband and a wife or whatever, put in who the listing agent is, the address of the property. I can put all that stuff in there, and I only have to put it in once, and then it'll auto-populate all the rest of the forms, okay? So let's just do it here. I'm going to do select person, and when I click on this select person, it gives me the options here of no one, which we don't want to do, me. It has the office here and the company, which we don't want to do any of those. So I need to add actually the clients in here. So then I'm just going to hit add person, which would bring it up here. Now, if they already are within the system that you put them in before, you could start to type their name and it would come up. So let me I'll do Rick Bentley because I know I put him in here before. So it'll start to bring it up. But if they aren't in there, so let's see. I'm going to put in Jake here. James, MCG, is it capital G?
Yep.
RATH?
Yep.
Yeah. So I've got James in here, which, tell me how I call him Jake when his name is James. Well, that's a story for another day. But all right. So Jake, what email address?
It's j.mcgrath@Valhalla.
That what? Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, I'm just gonna say Gmail. I forgot. You got Valhalla, whatever. All right. So I put in his email address. I can add a phone number. Whatever. I just throw in a phone number there, and I can put in the rest of this stuff. For me, when I'm using this, I typically do their name, their email address, phone number, and that's all I put in. Okay. So I am going to click this send an intro email, just so that he'll get that intro email. You don't need to, but I always just do that. Then I'm going to click add. Actually, I'm not going to because I don't know whose email address that is. So I'll just say add person. Okay. So now you'll see it's added him up there. So now I can get the seller too. I would click on it. You can see I've got choices. If they're not in there, I would hit add person, type it in again. Oh, let me pause. One other thing that make sure, okay. I know sometimes watching technology classes is like put you to sleep. So especially you guys on Zoom that are probably watching a movie or scrolling through Facebook at the same time as you're watching this class, make sure you're paying attention right now, okay? You'll notice when I put in a person's name here, it's got a spot over here for add to my team. Now, would logic tell you that you should check that box, or would logic tell you not to check that box? And there's not a right answer. I'm just curious of what you guys think.
As a customer, I wouldn't check it.
Okay, good. Well, you got good. I'm proud of you guys because for me, when I first started using this system, like to me at first, I felt like, well, no, I want to add them to my team. You do not. Again, make sure you quit scrolling Facebook for a minute. You do not want to check that box because of exactly what you're saying. Is it's a client, they're not a member of your team. So the thing to keep in mind is if you type in the client's name and then you check this box to add to my team, what it will do is it will allow them to look at every document in your folder. And you are going to have some documents in there you probably don't want your client to see. And the example of that would be your commission report that shows exactly how much money you made off the transaction. You probably are not going to want your client to have access to just at any time go log in and take a look and see what your commission is, that kind of stuff. Okay, does that make sense? So just recognize the only time you're going to check this box of add to my team is going to be if it is someone that is actually on your team that you say, I want this person to be able to see everything in this file. If you want them to see everything in the file, check the box. If you don't, then don't check the box. All right, go back to scrolling Facebook again. Actually, let me check. I think there was a comment up here. Let me see if I can see what they were. Okay, good. You guys said no. Good. You guys are all intuitive. All right, so I would add the other seller in here if there is one. If there's not, I leave it. Then listing agent, well, because it's me, I'm going to be in there, so I'm going to add that. Then I would come down here and I'm going to put in I can, again, search by an address or an MLS number. So let me just. All right, so I'll throw in my address so you can see it's loaded all of that in there. Now I can hit autofill and you can see it's dropped in the seller's name in there. It's dropped my name in here. It's got the property address. Now all I need to do is go through and finish filling out the rest of the boxes. Okay? So I would just go through and fill these out. Now the other thing that it does by you adding the people in is you'll notice it's dropped in right where Jake needs to sign or initial, excuse me. On this page, as I scroll down here again, I would just check all the boxes as I go through it. It would drop in a spot for him to initial, check the boxes, and then down here, it already knows he needs to sign there and I need to sign here. So I can hit the sign now button. It brings it up, has you decide on your signature, and then I just hit adopt and sign. Now, while we're here though, if for some reason, let's say I was out with the client and I had either a tablet or an iPad or something that I was going to have them sign on, they can do it electronically and just adopt and sign like we've got here. Or you'll notice down at the bottom left, it's got draw signature. So if you've got a computer, a tablet, or an iPad or something where they could actually sign and they want to, you can hit this draw signature and then come up here and, you know, whatever. Like you can see with the mouse, I'm doing horrible, but you could draw the signature there if you want to as well. Or I can use the type signature and just have everything put in there. And then I just hit adopt and sign. Once you've done that, now it's adopted that as that's your signature, and it'll then place that everywhere that anytime, if there was another spot for me to sign, I could just click and it would put that in there. Make sense? All right. So now, let's say though that there were 3 sellers on this for some reason, so that up here at the top, I had 3 seller names in here. Well, that also now means I need 3 initials from sellers. Well, there's only spots for 2. If you come up here under the add, I can do add initials, and then I could drop this down on here somewhere, and now it will allow me to assign the field. And if the person's not in the list, again, I would just hit add person. It would bring it up. I could type them in to create them to add in there, okay? So that's the same with if I needed to add a signature somewhere, I can do that. If for some reason I wanted to strike through something, so let's say that I accidentally brought this with me and I meant to have the 6%, I could come and do, which this is not really recommended to do, by the way, but I could strike through the commission amount there And if you did that, I would say to add an initial or something to it as well. But anyway, all right. Any questions so far on any of that? And oh, let me actually show you how to get rid of it too. So if you accidentally dropped one somewhere, you come click on it, it'll bring up to where you would assign it. But there's also this X, that'll remove it. Same thing with that strike through. If I come click on it, there's an X, I can delete it. All right, questions? Anyone online? Or are you guys watching Wheel of Fortune or Price is Right or something? Doesn't work real well when you can't hear them laugh when I make fun of them. Oh, there we go. Julie said, ha. Okay, good. Thanks. All right, no questions. So we're doing good. Okay, so that's how you're going to get the signatures and initials and everything added there. Once I have done that, and again, if for whatever reason I realize that, oh, I forgot to add James's significant other or whatever, I can click on this autofill again. It'll, well, first ask me, do I want to save changes? I'll just say yes. But then it brings back up the autofill to where I can, again, go in and add the person or whatever. And then there's more to where I can review notes and tasks and document history and stuff, which we'll talk more about later. So at this point, I've already saved it. The next step would be to share it. Well, but I don't want to share it yet because I've only filled out the one document. So now that I've saved it, I'm just going to do the hit the back button here. And it's going to ask me, are you sure you don't want to share it? And I don't want to share it. All right, let me see what we've got on the chat here. Oh, Wheel of Fortune comes on at 6. I'm impressed that you know that, Tim. All right. Let's see. You strike through the commission. How would you put a different amount? Yeah, good question. That's the challenge is on this is ultimately if you were going to strike through it, I would say strike through it. And then what you would want to do, Josh, would be to go to down here to go add a document. And then when I click on the add document, I'll explain more of this in a second. But I would just go to templates, all C21 MLS forms. I'm going to do exclusive again. And then it's brought up the addendum to this exclusive. Those are buyer broker. Addendum to the exclusive right to sell. That's a lease option, so I don't want that one. Addendum to this. And then I would just select the addendum, put the addendum in there and type what I wanted it to be is really how you would want to do it. So. All right, so that's why I was saying typically it's just get the right form, but if for some reason you didn't have it, you probably want to end up, if you had to print it out, you could strike through it and then write in above it the amount and have them initial would be one. So, all right, but let's say that I wanted to add some documents to this, other documents that are not, that there's not a placeholder for. So I'm going to click add document, and then I would either do templates, which we've already shown you is go to all C21 and MLS and find it. The other option would be to browse for it. So if I browse, again, that's if I had it saved on my computer somewhere, I could upload it. The other option, which this one I usually use a lot. I don't know how many agents use it, but I love this one and I use it a lot. Is if, let's say that I had gotten an offer in or something and it was emailed to me or the client emailed me a document that I needed to add into my loop here. Then what you can do is you can come to this email right here, click on it. It gives you this long email address. I just do copy to clipboard. Then from here, you go over to the email that has the document in it, click forward for the email to forward that email, paste in this email address, and then send the email. And then what happens is it actually emails it right into this loop. And then it will drop in there. Now there's one catch. So again, stop watching whatever and pay attention on this. The only documents that it will upload are PDFs. So if for some reason somebody sent you a document and it was in a Word format, you're going to have to save it as a PDF because it won't upload. But like, take that back. Word might work. Excel will not work. For sure, and Excel won't work. Images won't upload into there. So essentially, it's PDFs. So what you would want to do is make sure if they came to you as a Word doc, then obviously save it on your computer as a PDF, and then you would upload it. But as long as it's come in the email as a PDF, click forward, drop in this email address, send, and then it will automatically send it to here to where once you just refreshed your page, as soon as you refresh the page, it would put it right above this top one here. It would put the document in at the top there. Now, it'll come in with whatever the document is named at, and a lot of times it has some weird characters and stuff like that. So at any time, if you wanted to rename one of these, again, click on the 3 dots, rename, puts it in here, and then I could just name it as, I could just put this one as 7%, whatever. But so you could rename it. You could delete what's there and change it to whatever you want it to be named. So, make sense? All right, let's see. I'm trying to think of where to go, make sense to go next. Let's do this. Okay, so let's assume that I've gone through and filled all these out. So let me just do that. Actually, let me see if let me try one other thing here. Sorry. I want to see if that open all will work. I don't know why it wasn't. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I hit select there, and you can see I could archive all those documents. I can make copies of them. I can open, print, download, or fax. But I'm going to do open. So I hit open on it. When it opens it, it's going to then bring up this autofill, and you'll notice it's got a spot for the seller. Now it's got a spot for the buyer as well that I could add the buyers in there if I wanted. But we're just going to leave what we've got in there. So I'm just going to scroll down and hit autofill. So the listing agreement we had already done, so that's already filled out. So let's scroll past that. But you will notice now on the seller property disclosures, it's dropped the seller's name in there. It's put the address of the property in there. It's got the places to go through and fill it out, which, by the way, should you ever do this on Dotloop and fill out the seller property disclosures? No. Yeah, good. No, don't do that ever. So from here, though, you just would want to make sure it's got the spots for the seller to initial. And again, because I've auto-filled it, it's already populated it there. If I had the buyer and I hadn't done the autofill, I would have to click on it, assign to, they're not in here. I would have to add a buyer and type in their name and everything. Okay. So I just go through here. It's got places for him to sign. That's all good. We got the wire disclosure that has, too fast there. Wire fraud alert that's got the places for him to sign there. So we're good. All right, so from here then, I'm ready. Let's say that I've gone through all the documents. They're all filled out. They're ready to go. The next thing I'm going to do is the save and share. So I'm just going to hit save and share. So it's now saved those documents, and it's asking me who do I want to share them with. So he's the only one that's in there besides me, and I've already signed it. So it's just saying, okay, Jake needs to sign it. It's got 13 fields for him to sign. Now, here's usually what I recommend that you do. So let's say that it was a husband or wife kind of a thing in here. Always look, and I've had a few times this has happened with me, where I just always want to pay attention where it says 13 fields assigned, that for both people, it has the same number of fields assigned. I've had a time or two where, like when I was dropping initials in or whatever, that I forgot to drop one. But because I got here and I looked at that, I saw one said 13 and one said 12. I was like, well, don't send it yet. Then I got to go figure out because it probably should. So just know in your mind if it should be the same number. Like it's possible there's a time that maybe you only need one of their initials or something, and that's fine. But I always just look at that as kind of a check before I send it. That way I don't have to go back later on and be like, oh, forgot to have you initial this one or whatever. Okay. All right. Now, on specifically this scenario we're doing right now is I was going to be sharing to him the exclusive right to sell, the seller property condition disclosures, and the wire fraud. Now you'll notice over here off to the right, it shows can sign is what, and so what, the only thing that Jake's going to be able to do is to sign. Okay. Now on those seller disclosures though, if you remember, we were looking at them, who fills them out? Who fills out the seller, right? The client seller is going to be filling them out, not you. So, but this, if I send it that way, is only can sign. So they won't be able to fill them out. All they would be able to do is sign them. So I've got to decide one of two things in this scenario. Let me see what people are saying here on the chat. Yeah, good. Okay, perfect. All right, so I've got one of two options, and I don't know that there's a right or a wrong on this, but you could do one of two things. Either one, I can change this from can sign to the option is view only, which obviously I don't want him to view only because I need him to sign it. But if you wanted to send these to somebody and not let them be able to do anything, you can send them as a view only. So if you had something you wanted to send to the client and you just wanted them to be able to view it only, you can do that. Can sign is the next option, which we already talked about. This can fill and sign is typically, if you're sending seller disclosures, you're probably going to need to send it as can fill and sign, because then they can actually fill out that form, the seller disclosures, check the boxes, type stuff in, and they can sign as well. And anytime you hover over, you can see it says can view, sign, and complete a form. Document will automatically be shared back once completed. Ideal for clients. Down here is can edit in private. This one they can view, sign, fill out, or create a new document version in private, then reshare it. So the thing with this, you typically are going to want to use, very rarely are you going to do can edit in private, is probably what I will say to you. Meaning it will, if you're sending it to another agent, you may want to, that's why it's saying it's ideal for sharing with a co-op agent is potential, but typically if you're sharing with them and you have listed them as a role in there as the listing agent, and I'll show you that in a minute, it's going to automatically give them that can edit in private. But anyway, just kind of recognize the lower on this list that you go, the more they can do, is basically the way to think of it. But so on this one, if I was sending it, where I was saying there's one of two options, either send and let them can fill and edit the whole thing, which is fine because there's really nothing they can fill out on the other documents anyway for them to fill out, but the seller disclosure they can. But sometimes some people are like, well, I don't even want to chance it. If that were the case, send it as two different emails. One is the can sign, which would be the wire disclosure and the listing agreement, and the other one being send it separately as a can fill and sign as seller disclosures. I kind of, depending on the mood I'm in, I do it both ways, either way. So, all right. The other thing that I do when I do that, so this one we're going to do it as can sign, because, well, no, we need to do it as can fill and sign. We could put other people in here if we wanted to type in another name, an email address, and then their role here that we would want to put them in. Sorry.
So in this day and age, do you actually ever even print something off and physically take it to someone's house?
Pretty rare.
Show it to them and say, just take these and sign these.
Pretty rare. The times that you'll run into it is if it's a older person or just somebody who's, hey, I hate technology kind of a thing. But yeah, pretty rare.
Really?
Most of the time, you're just going to do it through here. So, yep. All right. So if I wanted to send a copy of this though to, like, let's say the title company or something, at this point I wouldn't be, but let's just say I wanted to, I could type in the person's name, their email address, and then you select their role over here. So I'd say the escrow or title, and typically they're going to be view only, so it's defaulted to that. You can put that in. You can add in a custom message, which so again, if you guys are online not paying attention, pay attention for a minute. Here's what I recommend that you do. Anytime, and this is probably more important than anything else I'm going to say today about doing this. So in fact, let me give you a little bit of a background on the story first, and then I'll tell you why I'm saying what I'm saying. I am on the professional standards committee for both the Utah Association of Realtors and the Salt Lake Board of Realtors. And what that basically means is if somebody has a dispute that they turn over to either the board or the Utah Association of Realtors, they will then typically try to go to resolve that. And basically like think of it as an arbitration, but it's your own peers that are arbitrating it. And I end up being on that. Well, it is not uncommon, and I think you guys would probably agree. In fact, actually, let me ask it. How often if I send this to Jake, if I just click send that and for him to sign, How often do you think he actually stops and really goes through and reads the document?
Hardly ever.
Yeah, rare, right? That they're going to. Now, so here's why. So this ties in great with the question you were asking. You guys all set? You're just hanging out. You just came because you love my classes, right? All right. So this would be the perfect example, though, of when you ask what's the difference, how often do you actually take it to somebody? At these disputes, here's what happens. If a client is looking for a way out of something, guess what they're going to say if they've done it through Dotloop or DocuSign? Well, I didn't really read that. Well, they didn't explain that to me. They didn't tell me what, like I can't tell you how many times that I have been sitting there and a dispute's happening and a client is there either on behalf of or against somebody for some reason. And they'll say, well, I sent it to them. And let me give you the one that comes to my mind is we had one that it was a scenario, an agent had shown properties to a buyer, went out of town. While she was out of town, the buyer found a property on their own through a friend that was listed. They went and bought it through the listing agent. The buyer's agent, when she got back from vacation, of course, was like, hey, those are my clients and I want to be paid. And she said, I had a buyer broker signed by them. And they said, we didn't ever sign any type of a buyer broker agreement. We signed an offer with you because they had made an offer on a property that didn't work out. They said, but we didn't ever agree to have you be our agent for every property, just that one. And she said, no, I sent it to you through, I think it was DocuSign, not Dotloop. She said, I sent it to you through DocuSign and you guys signed it and here's a copy proving that. Well, guess what the clients, of course, said? She didn't tell us that that's what we were signing. Okay, so here's my point. There's a spot here for a custom message. My recommendation to you is when you're sending this to a client, I would put into that custom message section, here are the documents that are enclosed, and I don't know that you need to go beyond that, but I would at least say, to some extent, especially based on that last one, if somebody's signing a buyer broker agreement specifically, more so than a listing agreement, I would type, if that's all you were sending to them. So if you're sending them like one document, I would in this custom message type out a little bit more, like enclosed. Here's the buyer broker agreement that basically says that I'm going to be your agent to help you find a home or something. That's just going to give you another layer of protection that when somebody goes, well, I didn't actually read the documents, that you could at least say, well, but yeah, in the email that I sent to you, though, I detailed, like it's going to be to your protection a little more. Because for me, I'll tell you, on that arbitration I sat in on that one, when the client said, well, we didn't really, like, and should they read it? Absolutely, they should. But I sat there listening when they were like, well, yeah, she didn't tell us that we were signing that. We just thought we were making an offer. And I sat there going, well, I know how I am. I would have just been click, 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 click. I wouldn't have stopped and read it. So I kind of like gave a little bit of, yeah, I believe it. Now, had she said, well, no, look, in the custom message, I told them enclosed is the buyer broker agreement, the real estate purchase contract, the wire fraud, the da-da-da-da-da. Like I would have been more apt to be like, oh, well, no, she did tell you that that's what was there. So does that make sense? Yeah.
So when you share it with them, does it send them like a link to this form, or does it just send them PDFs of the actual contract?
Yeah, great question. So we haven't gotten to the PDF section, so let's do that first and then I'll answer. So the other thing you have down here, which I recommend to do, is check this box for attach a PDF, because then it will send them a PDF. But when you send this, it comes as an email of something that they just click on a link that will then bring them into this, and then they can click and sign. Okay. But I do always recommend check the box for attach PDF to the email so that they have a copy of it as well. Okay. Even though technically they have access to the loop and could log in anytime and get it, I just think it's a good idea to attach a PDF to the email just in case they, whatever, want to save it easier or something like that. All right. Make sense on all that? So I would just click share, which I'm going to do, although I don't know who it's going to go to, but we'll see what happens. All right. So now that I've done that, I'm done with there. Okay. But occasionally what will happen, and I actually just closed on a property that I was helping a friend of mine buy a townhouse for his daughter and son-in-law. And the wife of my friend, every time I would share something to them in Dotloop, he would sign it like right away. And he would tell me, I'm going to get her to sign it, and then she wouldn't sign. I just realized I didn't check the chat box. Sorry, guys. I'll check your chat box in 1 second here. So, but I noticed that she would forget to go in and sign. And so I would text her and say, hey, can you go in and sign that? And she would say, oh yeah, can you just resend it to me? So I want to show you how to resend, because if I go and try to resend this again, so if I click on here, and I can click share here or up here, either way. So I'm going to hit share here. Well, you'll notice here, it doesn't give me the option to share it with anybody. It doesn't give me the option to share it with Jake. So if he was saying share it with me again, you'd come in here and be like, I don't know how to share it. Well, up here has reshare and more options. So if I click on that, it'll show me that it's still waiting for him. So I could recheck it here and then reshare. So if you ever need to reshare, you can do it that way as well. All right, let me check the questions here. Don't you have a fiduciary duty to explain the contracts? Absolutely. That, yes, 100% you do. But like I said, unfortunately, it's not uncommon, especially with a Dotloop or something, for agents not to do that. So Jordan, I love what you're saying. And yes, if you will take the time to really explain that, you're probably not going to have the issues that this agent ran into, in which, by the way, the one who said I had them sign it while I was before I went on vacation kind of a thing, we didn't give the commission to her, we gave it to the other person. And that's a whole other story that I'll tell you some other day. Okay, can they actually get out of it if they say they didn't read it but still sign it? Technically, probably no. They can't just get out of it by just saying that. But because we were sitting in an arbitration, all of us that were sitting on that panel actually just kind of felt like, there was, like I said, this is a way longer story. Like, we were there for hours. But we just kind of felt like the agent didn't do a very good job of telling them anything along the way, really. Like, she was new, unfortunately, and things, and just, but as we listened to it, we just felt like she didn't. So technically, no, by signing it, like at the top, it says this is a legally binding agreement, read carefully. So technically, no. And actually, to answer your question on that, is what we did in this arbitration, the arbitration was to decide who would get the commission, not if she was owed a commission. So this is two separate things. The buyer broker agreements that they signed said they would pay her a commission if they bought a house. So technically, and we did say this to that agent, you still have a right to take them to court and sue them for the commission because they signed that buyer broker agreement. But it's pretty rare that agents or companies will do that. But you definitely could. So yes, they can't get out of it. In fact, she could have taken them to court to get paid for it. So it is legally binding. So yeah, great questions there.
So it wouldn't really be a bad idea, especially when you're starting, would it, to print off the buyer broker agreement and take it to your customer, and it's like one page, right?
Right. Well, no, the buyer broker is going to be longer than that, but yeah.
Just go over it with them and then
Absolutely.
physically sign stuff and then scan and blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah.
yeah, either that or even just having a copy that you carry around that you say to them, this is what I'm going to be sending to you through Dotloop, and this is what it looks like, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, no question, it's a good idea to do that.
At least while you're starting, I mean, for sure.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. So, all right, let's see, what else from here? Oh, I know what else I was going to show you. So the one other thing I wanted to show you on this, and then we'll go to the next section. So let's say though, and this doesn't happen very often, but let's say that I'm in here, let me go back. The client or another agent or whatever, somebody says, oh, I never got that document. Notice here it shows that it's waiting on others, and if I hover over it, it says still waiting on James to sign. Now, if Jake had gone in though and looked at the document but not signed it, when I hover over it like this, it would say that the document had been viewed by him but not signed by him. So that's the first thing, is at any time you can kind of see, have they even looked at it yet or not right here. The other thing that you can do, if I click on and go into it here, up at the top, you'll see this more, and if I go to it, it shows document history. If I click on that, it'll give you a history of a date and time that everything happened. So you can see the date and time that I, is that a share? Or I think that's just I was filling it out, but it shows that I viewed it, shows that I viewed it. So you can see at any time a date and time that somebody viewed the document and what they did as well. So it gives you the history of the document there at any time. So, and that's just under the more here in document history. And also you can do that host in-person signing where, select the person you want to sign. And then if I was on a tablet or an iPad or something, I could hand it over. They can begin the sign and they could do all of the signing stuff. Or sign it just using your computer right there, which I don't recommend as much. So, all right, let's just do it though so that you can see. Oh, the problem is because we did this, I forgot. This is the reason that I typically don't give them the can fill and sign on every document, only the ones that I want them to, is because you shouldn't miss something, but if you had missed something, it's going to ask them to fill it out now, a step at a time along here, so, which we don't want to do. So I'm just going to say I'm done. All right. So that's how we're going to, what happened here? Logged me out. All right, so again, now you can see it showed James viewed, still waiting on him to sign. Because I did that host in-person signing, it says, okay, he viewed it, but he hasn't signed it. Once he has signed it, then it will show here, it won't even say waiting on others, it'll just say signed. So you'll know that it's been signed, okay? So now, here's the next step. So I have filled all these forms out, had them signed by the client, let's say, even though they're not, but let's say that they were. Now, think of it this way. Again, this is where I come back to think in the old days of using just a file folder. If you had walked over to a filing cabinet, opened it up and got out the documents, went and had your client sign them, and you took them back and just put them into your filing cabinet, is the office going to know that you went and got a listing? No. So forget Dotloop for a minute. If you had physically had it signed and before computers, how would you let the office know that you got a new listing?
Have to go tell somebody.
Yeah, you go turn it in, right? Meaning, so we've got sitting on this table these little, in fact, this even says on here, inbox. So you would go and put it in somebody's inbox in the old days when I first started selling real estate. There was an inbox sitting at the office administrator's desk, and you would go drop your listing paperwork in there, and she would fill it out and do whatever she needed to do with it. Well, same thing with this. Just because you got it signed and it's sitting there, sometimes what we've noticed is agents are like, well, you should have known, like it got signed. Well, how would we know? You didn't go put it in the inbox. So I'm going to show you how you do that. So what you will do when you're ready to is I could just select this, which is going to select that whole folder, or I could select just one document at a time. And then up here, instead of share, you're going to do submit for review. And so anytime you click submit for review, what's going to happen then, in fact, I'm going to go out of this loop and go into a real one now for a minute here. So anytime that you go in and you send one, what's going to happen, so you can see here, this one is one that shows that the document's been signed, this has been signed, and all this kind of stuff. So you're going to just check the documents you want to do. You're going to click submit for review. That's going to then send it to the office and let them know, hey, there's some paperwork that needs to be reviewed. So again, it's like the inbox. Now what's going to happen then is they are then going to go into it and they're going to take a look at it, the staff is, and see, does it look right? And if it is, then they will mark it off to the side here. See how these are showing as approved? So any of these that are showing as approved are approved, and it's good to go. Every now and then you'll see, see this one here. This ACP is basically saying it was accepted on July 13th. But sometimes they'll put other little tags or notes in there of like that it's missing a signature or missing an initial or whatever. So at any time, if that happens, it'll come back as an email to you letting you know there's something you need to look at. When you come in here, it'll say returned here instead of approved, and then it'll have a little tag or a note there of what you need to do to fix it. Does that make sense? All right, somebody's got a chat box something in here. Let me see what we got. You don't submit until you're all done though, right? So it depends, Julie, on that, what the purpose of it is. So I mean, when you say done, I'm assuming you're meaning like the with that document or whatever. Will you unmute? It might be easier if we talk through what you're thinking. If you can unmute. If you can't,
You send every document in here?
What's that?
You send every document in here for review?
Yeah.
After it's signed?
Oh, once one is approved, you don't need to resend it.
Okay.
Okay, Russ. So yeah, like I just was working on a deal and I wasn't submitting anything because I wasn't done. Like I was sending documents back and forth between the buyer and the seller, right? But then they started sending me stuff saying it wasn't complete because I wasn't like when I get a document back half signed, I wasn't like archiving the old form. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so I was getting like all these like not complete forms, and I was like, what is happening? Because this was my first experience with it.
Yeah, so here's how I always think of it, Julie, is I always, for me at least, what makes the most sense for how I know if I should do a submit for review or not, is I just kind of go back to, if I was doing this the old fashioned way, filling it out and having them sign it, would have I gone and dropped it in the inbox at the secretary's desk? And if the answer is yes, then do a submit for review. If the answer is no, I wouldn't have gone and turned that in yet, then I don't hit the submit for review. So does that help?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But they like, somehow they just jumped onto my loop and knew it was happening. Like I didn't submit. And so I was like,
that is,
I don't know.
yeah, I'm not sure why that would have been that, because typically they aren't going to go into your loop unless there's something, a flag or something that's asking them to do that for whatever reason. So I don't know why that would have happened, but yeah, so typically,
Well,
go
yeah,
ahead.
I put my broker on, and so maybe he was asking them to review it. I don't know.
As possible, I guess. So you had shared it with Ken as well? Or
Yeah, because it was a really weird deal. So he was helping me through it.
So that could be why, maybe, is I'm not sure. Typically, they're not going to do anything with it until you have hit that submit for review. But so I would agree with you of like, I just always say, think of it as in the old days, would have the office, do they need to know about it yet? And like you say, if you've only had it signed by one person or one side of the transaction, not the other side, I wouldn't hit submit for review.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. Yep. All right. Let's see. So I think that's probably pretty much it as far as the loops and stuff go. I mean, so you can see this is the one that I was telling you that I just closed for my friend. I mean, you can see there's quite a bit of stuff, and I don't know why I've got 2 seller disclosures too, but I don't know. Anyway, but so you can kind of just see how over time you'll end up adding more documents and those kinds of things along the way. As I scroll down here, this is another spot you could go and add the people. So you can see here I've got the listing agent that was in here. Here was the escrow and title officer. This was a cash deal, so there wasn't a loan officer, but typically there would have been another loan officer in there. And you can just add people. You know, you just hit add person, type in their name, address, email address, what their role is, assign it there, and then you're good to go there. The other thing you can do in here, which this is more of an advance, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but you can go in here and add tasks as well to the loops. So you could go and assign those tasks to the people that are up above as well. And where a lot of times you'll see some of that would be if you're using a transaction coordinator, which here's the good news. If you're using a transaction coordinator, you're not going to hardly ever go in here. So that's the other option. I'm going to teach you all this and then just go, hey, you know, if you just use a transaction coordinator, they'll do all this for you. you don't have to worry about it. All right, so that's pretty much it in terms of the loops and things here. Let me just make sure I haven't missed anything else. Oh, one other thing to show you. So up here, there's a place for notifications and notes. So if you want to send somebody a note in here, you can go in here and you'll see this is how the staff will communicate with you a lot of times too. So if you click on the notes, over here, just make sure you're selecting the right person, because sometimes this is like, I don't know if you guys do this, but there are times when on my phone, I'll think about sending a text to my wife. I'll go into my text and I just start typing the text to my wife and hit send. And then I realize, oh, I just sent that to my client. Oops. And because like I wasn't paying attention to who I was sending it to. Same thing on this is if you just click on it and go in, I would be sending a message here to Patricia when maybe I meant to send it to Ben or Amber or whatever. But so Patricia's one of the staff people, and you can see on here, she, asked me a question about the commission report and an old note or blah, blah, blah. So you can send notes back and forth to each other. And the nice thing about doing it in here is it sends it to them as an email, but it also keeps track of it in here so you can see a log of that in there as well. Okay. All right, so that's pretty much it on the loop section. Let me just kind of hit on a couple other things, then we'll be done. Up here is the tasks, which again, you're probably really not going to do much with, but if I clicked on it, I could see any tasks that were assigned to me, if there were any that were overdue, which apparently I have some or something, I don't know what. And you can see any completed tasks there or all tasks there. So
transaction coordinators, they probably obviously do all their work through Dotloop. So
correct.
If I do get someone, if I want to try them out or whatever on the first transaction, are they cool with me taking my laptop and going in there and sitting next to them and learning with them, or is that?
Good question. I've never asked that. I don't know.
Yeah,
I would just say ask.
Yeah.
Okay. So, because the part of where that would be good is they use, so on these the task list in the loops. Let me see if I can find one. I didn't use a transaction coordinator on this one because it was a cash deal and it was such a slick slam dunk, nothing to it that I just did it all myself.
So you typically use them.
I usually do. Let me just see.
When do you hand it over to them? Like when do they take it?
Yeah, great question. This one doesn't show me the task. So essentially, you can have them do it right. Like if I knew I was going to go list Jake's house, I could call the whoever I would get assigned to as a transaction coordinator and just say, hey, I'm getting a new listing. Here's the address. Here's the information. Will you go create the loop and they'll go fill out the listing agreement. They'll get everything put in there, ready to go.
And that's a flat fee, $350, and that's from the very start of the transaction. They'll take it for that number.
And your very first one they do it it's half off the $350. So but yeah, they'll take over and think of it this way, like the two things that I always say with it is, number one, just remember you're still the agent, they're not. So like you're responsible to make sure it's all correct and stuff. So don't just 100% rely on them, because you can't later on go, well, I had a transaction coordinator. Well, so what? You're licensed kind of thing.
Check all the paperwork.
Yep. And then the second thing I always say on it is they will do just about anything that could be done from an office. A transaction coordinator is not going to go out and put up a sign for you. They're not going to go take pictures for you. Like anything they could do sitting from their desk, just about. That's not probably 100% correct, but just about anything they could do from sitting at the desk, they will do it for you on it too. So yeah, it's kind of nice, and especially for newer agents, I usually recommend it because I have watched a lot of new agents come in. So I have mixed feelings. Sometimes with a new agent, I'm like, no, I want you to learn the process and learn how to do it before you use a transaction coordinator. The downside though is I've watched them spend 2 days filling out paperwork that if they would have gone and handed off to a transaction coordinator, you could go get another deal kind of thing. So anyway, you can decide which way you want to go on that. But when you use them down in this task section, you'll just, they run everything off of this task section.
Okay, so you communicate with them through the task section?
No, you're going to communicate with them. Sorry, I shouldn't have gone out there. You're going to communicate with them through this messages thing here. But for what they're doing to keep track and stay on top of everything is they're using, so there's these templates here. So I'll just throw one in here. A new agent buyer under contract checklist. Hopefully they don't kill me for doing this. But if I throw that in there, see now here's a whole checklist of things to do. This is more for them than you necessarily, but it's not a bad idea. You can go add those in and it'll show you what they do. So you can, it's just a checklist of things to do.
It'd be overwhelming for a brand new agent.
Yeah.
If you weren't using something.
Right. That's why I'm saying, like, in a lot of ways, it's this mixed feelings thing of do it yourself, but yeah, just use that. So, all right. So tasks here is that one. People this is just their list of contacts that you have in there, right here. So here's all the people that I have in this system as contacts. And typically that's just going to be based on as you do transactions, it'll just slowly build kind of thing. But this one is the one you really need to probably see, and then we'll wrap up. And that is templates. So if I click on this templates section, it's going to bring me to that same spot we've been talking about within the loops. It's just I'm not in a loop. And so you can see it's got a personal one. It's got your inbox we talked about, and then it's got the all C21 and MLS forms. So if you ever just wanted to, so when you were asking Chris about being able to just print out documents, rather than create a loop, if I just wanted to print some out for just random whatever, I would go to the templates section up here at the top, click on this, then go to all C21 MLS forms, and then from here I could just go find, like, here's the real estate purchase contract. So I could just get that, and from here download it or print it, whatever, to get the document out of there. So that's where just all the templates, if you just ever want to get a form or read one for whatever reason, you don't need to go into a loop. You can always do it just under templates, all C2 and MLS forms, and then do a search for whatever. All right, questions? Okay, I guess no questions. Okay, well, awesome. Well, here's what I would recommend is go in and create a loop. Just always name it as test or testing or something if you're just messing around. Because apparently, especially after what Julie was just saying, if they went in and were looking at some of these things, just make sure you name it as test or whatever. And I would recommend don't do a submit for review on a test. I mean, you could, I guess, technically, but they're busy enough right now with, I mean, we're doing more transactions than I think we have ever done on a monthly basis right now. So the transaction coordinators are pretty busy. So I would not recommend right now doing a submit for review just on a test kind of a thing, just to test it. But go in and play around with it and have people sign stuff or whatever. Just make sure you put in there that it is a test and stuff. But yeah, just go get used to it, play around. And
So how do you actually erase these off of your main page here when you're in the profiles?
yeah, so if
How do you get that off if you just want that off?
yeah, so you can't delete anything, but you can archive. So right here where it says archive, so like this one here, I'm just gonna archive it.
Oh, archive, okay, just get it out of there.
So boom, and now it's archived, and then I think if I refresh, it should disappear off of my list. Yep.
Oh,
Which I don't want this one.
archive.
Yep,
Okay,
so,
yeah, now it's gone.
Yep, so you can't ever delete anything, you can just archive them, but that's how you would get rid of them off there. Okay.
So these are like active contacts, people you're actually doing business with, above and beyond, say, the Zap thing, which is just contacts. This is when it kind of moves
To the
like
next
big
level.
picture stuff here. Yeah, this is like when you actually go, you're having people, you're getting under contract with people and such.
Yep.
Then you're going to see people about this application.
Yep. Yeah, this is where now, okay, they've moved from I got an appointment to them to we're starting to, they're going to be a client.
So is DocuSign, is this what DocuSign does too?
So DocuSign is just a way to get signatures. Like that's just more of the universal electronic signature.
Real estate.
Dotloop is real estate. So same, we have a lot of agents who only use DocuSign. even though they're using DocuSign, but then they're either using a transaction coordinator that they give the documents to and who put them into Dotloop, or they have their own transaction coordinator that then puts them here. So it almost doesn't make sense to use DocuSign just because this is how the company, all of our files are here. We have no paper files in here.
Get familiar with this.
So get familiar. Yeah. Oh, let me actually, one other thing just to land on. So the one that I just archived actually is a good example of this. So if it ever, at any time you filled out a contract and you want me to take a look at it before you send it or something. So the one file, not the testing one, but the other one that I just archived was one that on Sunday or over the weekend, an agent called me and said, hey, I just got an offer in on my listing. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. It was his first one he's ever done. And he said, will you look at it and make sure it looks good? And I said, yeah. And he shared then with me the loop, which you can do, and that's what he did, which is fine. I never said anything to him. But because I'm an administrator, I have access to the entire company. So I'm just logged into mine right now. But if I come up here and click on this, you won't have this, but I can go to the company one. And all you have to do is tell me the name of your loop and I can go find it and look at it. So if you ever want me to look at something, you can just say, hey, will you take a look at this loop and tell me if I filled out the REFC right or whatever. I'm happy to do that for you. And it's just a matter of telling me the name of the loop. So, and like I said, if you end up sharing it with me, like it is fine, like, cause I can just archive it. But generally my preference is just tell me the name of the loop. I just forgot to tell him that when he called me. He's like, I'll share it with you. And I usually say, no, just tell me the name of the loop and I'll pull it up. Anyway. Cool. Okay, guys, thank you for being here. So next week, let me just kind of hit on this. So initially we had this 2 classes scheduled for next week. 2 things have come up that have changed it to where we're not going to do any classes next week. So Tuesday, Thursday, because I got to go to our St. George office for the first part of the week. But the other thing is, I usually go to California and train all of the new agents down there as well. But with COVID, I haven't been down there since January. So we're going to do the following week. So starting on the 17th, we're going to bust out all of the sales skill stuff in 1 week. So in essence, we're going to do no classes next week. But then the next week, we're going to do, 9 classes. So it'll be, and I sent out an email yesterday, I think, with this, so hopefully you got it. But if you didn't, just know, we will, and you're welcome to come be live here. In fact, I would love it. But we will do the following week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 10 until noon, all 5 of the days. And then on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we'll also do from 2 to 4 in here. So you can do it online, Zoom if you want. I would love to have more people here in person.
So 17th, which is that Monday?
Yeah, so we start on the Monday, the 17th, and all of those will be streamed, and same thing, you can go watch them later. Once we're done with that week, then we're going to jump into the 12-hour new agent classes that'll go, and we'll go back to the Tuesday, Thursday kind of a thing for a little while. So it's kind of a twofold thing. One is a test to see, is that better? But it also allows the California that have not gotten any of these trainings since March to jump on and be a part of the sales skills stuff. But then we'll go back to the Tuesday, Thursday. So if you miss any of them and need to because of timing or whatever, then you can always either go watch it online or catch it the next go around, because we'll get back to the Tuesday, Thursday. If it works, then I may end up shuffling and we'll change how we do it. But anyway, just kind of so you guys know.
Now, don't some of these classes count for your CE then?
Yeah, so the following week after that is when we're going to start the 12-hour new agent one that will count as when you got your license. I'm assuming you're newly licensed.
Brand new, yeah.
Yeah. So when you got your license, you got a thing that said in the first 2 years, you got to take the 12-hour new agent course. The following week after that, so I don't remember what day is, 23rd or 24th or something. That week, the Tuesday, Thursday, we'll start the 12-hour new agent, where it'll be 3 weeks where we'll do a Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday, and then you'll get 12 hours of the CE, but it also counts as that 12-hour new agent course.
This one doesn't count though.
No, this is no CE. All right. Marco, to find this recording is go to YouTube and do a search for Peak Agent Training. and then you'll find the channel. The other thing, it won't be there until, shoot, you know what I need to start doing? I can broadcast it on that channel while I'm doing this. I gotta remember that. I'm gonna do that next time. Anyway, it will show up there probably later today. It'll be on there because I've got to go edit it and everything. But it'll show up on there later today. And if you just did a search, if you just even went to YouTube and you do a search for Dotloop August 6th, it'll show up. So, thanks, Bree, for sending. Here's the channel. So there you go. All right, guys, thanks for being here. Have a good one. And if I can help with anything, let me know.